like that intro, man.
You do?
I like that. I was bopping. I was like, I wonder if they can see me bopping.
Good afternoon, Torrence, Reed.
How you- I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm in good health. And nowadays, that's a lot,
Yeah,
right?
tell me about it, brother. Tell me about it.
Hmm.
It's Christmas Eve, and it's funny because my family, they just left a little while ago to go to this outdoor service or whatever,
Right.
and my daughter asked me how could I schedule a a podcast or a live stream while they were going to church, and she was like, "You need to cancel it." And I'm like,
Right. I was like, I'm not going anywhere.
"Yeah," I'm like, "I can't do that." So they had like this drive up service or whatever, and
Nice.
so I'm missing out on that. I think the family will be fine, but yeah, thank you for joining today.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. We're not doing too much in my house. We ain't going too many places, so even though it's the holidays, I'm in the house.
I
Right.
got you. So everybody,
Mhm.
thanks for joining us today. And so, Torrance, we rebranded this thing. I've been going live. Wow, about 40 weeks or so now. Like I don't know,
Mhm.
since March. And so we call it Lending with Purpose, the podcast. And so
Nice.
what we're doing with this is, I'm having conversations with my clients and my friends because everyone knows that I'm in the mortgage space and, real estate finance. And
Right.
so what we're doing is creating, introductions to various forms of information, professionals, resources, that we use. Number one. So also folks that things that we look for that we never knew existed
Right.
or also want to learn about. And so I've had the privilege of working with you and a few other guys on the project that we have that's launching pretty soon here and getting to know you. And we have been talking about, uh, some of the endeavors that you're in. And
Right.
one of them, the thing that struck me that I really liked about the activities that you're involved is the HBCU realty,
Right.
right? And so basically what you're doing with that and the mission behind it is rebuilding and stabilizing communities around historically black colleges and universities. So that's what HBCU means for everybody that's listening. And so the way Torrance that you're doing that is through, technology and group economics. So before we get into that and I start asking you questions about it, can you tell us, because you'll do a better job at introducing yourself than I, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Torrence Reed. I'm the founder of many things, co-founder of many things. And all for humility's sake, I'll try not to run through them. Right. Most of them are on my website, which is just torrencereed.com. Um, but I build things. I build things so that people can help themselves. I build things so that communities can transform themselves. Right. Um, and I've been in many spaces: the entrepreneurship space, the real estate space, the financial literacy space, and uh, many of those spaces involve trying to get people to engage in activities that can help them get to the next level, right? Whether they're investing or they're in wealth or they're trying to launch a startup. And so in those pursuits, uh, wealth is usually an underlying topic, right?
Right.
Um, and so up comes real estate, right? Whether I'm traveling the country talking to high school students or me and my friends are talking about things that we want to build, right? Real estate is for me at the core. It's at the core of many things I do now. It's at the core of the things that I want to do in the future, right? It's at the convergence of a lot of things that I love, a lot of the ways that I generate revenue. Just I'm not real deep into real estate, right? Like I'm not a contractor or an investor, right, or anything like that. But I love the idea of what real estate can do for me and my family in the future, and all of the things I want to accomplish now. So, in traveling the country, talking to anywhere from 20 to 30,000 HBCU students and PWI students at about 20 different institutions. Uh, real estate comes up a lot, right? Um, Real estate is the actual application of many things that are the foundation of financial literacy, right? You walk people down a credit path. You teach them how to capitalize on their positive cash flow that they've either found through analysis or they now either have by paying down credit, right?
Right.
Paying down debt.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the next thing you do is invest, right? And then ultimately in our society, right, in our economic structure of things, buying a house means you made it or you did it or you were able to accomplish everything that everyone has been teaching you, right? Um, and so what I found was several things. One, that no one is bringing the idea of real estate down to the mindset of 18-year-olds, right? And everyone could say they're college students, so they don't have money, but a lot of them have refund checks, right? And a lot of them waste those checks. Now, whether they should get them or not, I'm pretty sure you've had a guest or a conversation about that, right? That's a separate thing. But the idea of real estate,
One though.
say what?
Recipient of several of those though.
Right. The idea of what you can what you can do with that money is never introduced to you at that mindset, right? Like in our society, the idea of real estate is something you do like when you finally get 30 years old, or you finally settle down, or you finally tried all these things in life, right? Like now I'm gonna get a house, right? Like imagine if while you were in college, right, you were able to generate income and you could invest in the house that you lived in and still owned when you graduated. Like no one ever introduced that concept to you, right? And then the other side of it is uh, people are coming in and buying up our neighborhoods and we don't own them anymore, right? Basically, every HBCU in the country has a need for more housing. Usually when these houses or these neighborhoods are dilapidated or worn down, that's an invitation for unsavory characters to come into the neighborhood, right? And then the other thing is the students are allowed to utilize the skill sets that they want to acquire, right? Imagine the electrical engineering students actually being part of the panels being installed in a rehabbed house,
Right.
right? So for me, I just wanted a way to fuse all these things together. But I'm also a real estate investor myself. So when you build in things, you have to find the convergence of what you love and how you can help other people.
Got it.
Right.
Got it. So let me stop you there. So let's go on with the students first, right? And then we'll
Right.
get to the real estate investment piece because obviously that passion is a part of the reason why you're doing it, right?
Right.
But it also sounds to me the very best way or one of the best ways to rebuild the communities is to involve the communities, which would be the school as well
Right.
as the exterior, the outside as well, and have the both, kind of collaborate to finish this particular goal. So talk to me more about the student involvement and how that you feel that should work
So,
or how you're even making it work right now.
well, like I never understood how an agricultural university hires external groundskeepers, right? Like, why don't the students keep? I mean, aside from liability and insurance and all these other, right, operational things that have to go into play, but why don't the students have participate in the upkeep of the university as well as the revitalization of the neighborhood? Now, the student in the past, HBCU students were connected to the community. Every every social movement that's happened in this country started on a Black campus university. Well, a lot of them, maybe not every one of them. Don't quote me on every one of them, but many of them, right? So there's always been a connection from the university to the campus, right? And so what used to happen was you would have the university thriving and the community and then expanding outward, right? Now you have one of two things happen. You have the campus thriving, siloed in the middle of a community that's deteriorating.
Right.
Or you have a community thriving and the campus deteriorating in the middle, right? Like that, the incubator for the community that the schools used to be, it's not there anymore,
Right.
right? And so,
That practical, like real world experience.
right, and these kids, I mean, and they also can make money. You also can teach them about equity, and they also can. I mean, no one. I mean, just literally imagine the idea of someone saying you can own a piece of the thing you're living in while you're in school, right?
Some
Even if
of
you
us are not on a wide range though.
but
Like
even
yeah, some of us get that information, not to the masses though.
But even think about if the students pushed it more. Think about more students adopting the mentality of going home during their first summer break or their first spring break and saying, "Hey, mom, can we look into this two flat that's around the campus? I gotta have to live there for the next 4 years anyway." Right? Like that's not a mentality, right? Because that's not what's pushed to students is acquisition of wealth, right? While they're in college,
Right.
right? Right. And so that's the thing for me. And the easiest way to do that is using kind of the crux of our economy, real estate, like real estate and construction, like that drives a lot of the markers in this economy that decides whether we're doing well or not. Like, why not teach young people how to attach themselves to that at a younger age, right?
Right.
And
Oh, go ahead, finish.
I mean, there's so many things that you can do with it, right? The students can get volunteer hours, right? They can do apprenticeships. They can shadow. Uh, they can shadow the actual contractors that you hire to actually rehab the house, right? And so not only could you get volunteer hours, right? You could also get apprenticeship hours, or maybe you have to do some course for the end of the year where you have to, do something practical, right? Like that's really uh, that's really a driver for the student, right? Because it's classwork involved. There's money involved. Someone's now teaching you what to do with maybe a loan that you got that you probably really don't need, right? Because that's really a refund check,
Right.
right? Like even the idea of taking some money and making some more money with it, right? So, I mean, of course, the students are a vital part of it, but the way it's designed is they're not. It's not an impediment to anything else, right?
Right.
You can still purchase the houses and acquire the assets and rehab them while you work at the relationship with the university in said area,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah, and then we go through that too as well in our industry. I've had some times where we've had parents that said, "Listen, we're not going to pay for housing, like for dorms for our kids to live. So we're going to help them purchase a home off
Right,
campus, right? 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, four, whatever it might be, and then we're going to let our kids stay here, but they're going to rent the rooms to their friends."
right,
Right.
right,
And so that
right.
becomes an opportunity for us to create some wealth while they're living in it and serving a couple different purposes because my kid now has a place to live while they're in school, right? But then we're getting cash flow and it's offsetting that bill that we have during the time that they're in school. And then when they
Well,
graduate, number one, they got a place to stay after
mhm.
school, right? Or we can keep it and continue to rent this particular
The school's not going anywhere.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then also too, like one of the projects I know that you're working on in to Tuskegee,
Right,
which is in Alabama, that the cost of entry, there's a very low barrier. So
right,
like for instance, if you look at these properties there, they're ranging what 50,000 or so, as much as a
right,
hundred maybe.
right, right, right. And but some of them you can. I mean, you can pick them up for.
Let's say turnkey because now we're talking students. Because where
Okay,
I'm going with this, Torrance, is if a student is out there listening and 3 students get a refund check, $1,500, $2,000 each, that's enough money for a down payment on a $50,000 house. You know,
right,
if you're going
right,
to live there, right, and you're buying this property as an owner occupied property, 3 to 3.5% down, for a first time home buyer would allow you to purchase and get into this home. And so like on a $50,000 property, that's that's pretty affordable. You'll be able to get in.
Well, see, it's twofold because nothing changes monetarily until the paradigm shift happens mentally.
Right.
So once you start involving the kid in or the young adult at that point, right? Once you start involving them in paperwork and cash flow and accounts and 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 taxes and all the things that it's going to take to manage that house, right? Like that changes their whole mindset of generating cash while they're in school, right? And the byproduct of it is they're on top of their finances, right? Because sadly, there's a large number of students that graduate school every year, and they still don't know anything about money. They still don't know its relation to real life, and they still don't know how to generate a dollar. Most of them don't understand that they was in the red for 4 years.
Right.
They don't understand they're in the red from day one. You walk out of the financial aid office, you just signed a promissory note. You haven't even lived another moment of life. You already owe somebody some money in 4 years, right? Like those thoughts aren't drilled down, because then what you can do for 4 years is have them mentally pull themselves back up. Like, okay, because we would go to the universities and we did an exercise, right? And I would have the students actually calculate, like, what is your cash flow, right? And we use mobile apps and websites, and some of them wrote it down, right? And 80% of them were in the negative, even if it was negative $20, right? Like by the time I left there, it was so that they understood, just try to get to zero this month, right? If you're calling grandma and asking her for $30, don't call her this month. See if you cannot be negative 30 in the hole. Now, if you have an 18-year-old that owns a property and it's generating rental income from 3 people every month, that child is nowhere near negative $30 every month. They have a different mind, right? So it's we have a vested universities have a vested interest in students graduating in a more fiscally ready state, right? Like literally, that drives the economy, that affects the economy, that affects giving and donations and alumni spending, and so loan default rates, so many things. Schools have a vested interest in its students graduating and having had money and knowing how to get money and probably have some money when they graduate, right? Like, so
And that's the
it's
piece on the rebuilding and stabilizing.
right.
That's what it's all about.
Right, because then you begin to create an ecosystem uh, uh, of of students who've been utilizing their resources and their surroundings, their community for the last 4 years to
Right.
get money. And if you got a campus full of students that are getting money, right, then I'm pretty sure the university's doing well,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, some of these things will take time, right? Like, and I'm not talking about in a matter of semesters or even years sometimes. Like these are long-term plays, but it's possible to refuse the economic connection back to the university from the community. And like, why not do it and let the students sit in the middle of it? And every single person who invested a dollar actually get a real return.
Right.
Right. What
So we're gonna go there. All right. So last thing about technology. How are we gonna rebuild, right, and stabilize communities through tech? Like, tell me about that.
so So one of the things that I do, of course, is we, use the online communities, the chat apps, things that I've built myself, right, to fuse people and bring people together. That's all over the country, right? Some of the people that are partners in the Tuskegee House are in Los Angeles. Some of them are in Florida. Some of them, one guy's in the service and he's overseas, right? And so that's one way. People don't have to geographically be together anymore, right? Uh, and then the other way is making it easy for people. The way I built it is such that if you want minimal participation, then you can have minimal participation. And so all the systems on the back end that make sure tax paperwork and K1s and distributions and just educating people about even the necessity for those things, right? Like using technology to pull people in a more hurried pace into real estate because it's easier to get into now, right? Um, and of course, I mean, you know me, right? Like I'm a software developer. Eventually, I'll just build my whole little own HBCU Zillow, maybe, and right. But yeah, that's the beauty of right. I can sit here at the same desk and be working with 5 other people that are in 4 different time zones to rehab a house I've never laid eyes on.
Right. And so does that factor into the group economics movement and the
It does.
crowdfunding and such? And so can you tell us about that? And number one, what that means, and then also like your vision around it and how you're using the technology and the crowdfunding to complete projects.
Right. So for most people who haven't probably heard this word 70 million times by now, uh, crowdfunding just literally means to crowd a fund for people to pool their money together, right? There's various legal structures and legal ways you can do it. Some people, do it with a bank account. Some people do it with an LLC, right? But what we're doing is basically taking a smaller amount of money from everyone. And like you said, that's a lower barrier to entry, right? Like many people will never have 50 or $100,000, or not yet. Let me rephrase that. I won't speak that negativity.
Right.
Many people don't have 50 or $100,000 yet, but they have 6 or 7 or $8,000, right? And so a lot of the people who have participated thus far, they one have an affinity for HBCUs, right? Two, they understand that it's actually possible for multiple people to come together and move as a cohesive unit, right? Three, they like action, right? Like I'm not one to keep riding by a house, and if I say to myself 3 times when I ride by the house, man, somebody should fix that house up, right? The 4th time I ride by, I'm on the phone on whatever number is on the front of the house.
Right.
Right. So people like to take action. Right. And so we don't talk a lot. Right. Sometimes we might buy a house near HBCU and sit on it till we figure out what we're going to do. As long as we have the deed, we'll figure it out. Right. And then they're learning. Right. As I'm learning, as I'm talking to more people, as I even talk to you. Right. Like it's community. I'm sharing that knowledge. I want to cut time in half for people. So not only am I leading the projects, I got to make sure that the people involved are educated about what they're sending me money for. Right. So I just want it to be beneficial from any angle that you look at it, no matter who you are. Right. And I want 100 doors around 25 schools. Like that's my goal.
100 doors,
Right.
25 schools.
In 10 years.
Okay. So tell us, let's wrap up with this piece. Tell us about the Tuskegee Project.
Sure. So we are working with a dope group out of Tuskegee. They're actually called Rebuild Tuskegee. So they do essentially the same thing, rebuild houses around in the Tuskegee area, right? So we've partnered with them to actually rebuild a house that we collectively purchased. I have partners who have collectively purchased it with me. We are collectively funding the rehab. And we're actively still looking, for a partner or two, maybe, depending upon the terms and the numbers, right? We're about, I want to say maybe 40% done, right? And you only place percentages on things with rehab when you can look at it, right? I would anticipate it maybe would be done for the summer, right? But it's 5 minutes from the university, right? So I don't anticipate having any problems finding a tenant. Right. And so we haven't decided yet what type of project the property is, right? Some will be buy and hold, some will be fix and flips, some will be part of a package of other houses and land, right? For me, it's just we evaluate them as they come, right? And of course, we want to get the most bang in sometimes the shortest amount of time, right? With the least amount of money, right? Like anything else, right? But I'm excited. I haven't been to see the house yet, right? The general contractor, they make sure that they keep us updated, like using technology, right? Periodically, individuals on my team that live in the vicinity will go physically look at the house. When it's done, we're going to go down there and do a whole ribbon cutting and just make it a dope experience, right? But because of COVID, I haven't actually physically seen the house yet. But it's cool. I'll see it. I'll see it eventually, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You said as long
Yeah.
as they keep doing your FaceTimes and sending you pictures, and there's still a structure and walls and everything like 2x4 up, you feel
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're really socially active. So like if you want to follow along with what they're doing, like they share at each phase, right? Like, Monday, here's no roof on this room. Like, on Friday, hey, here's a roof, right? So uh not only do I get to see, right, like everyone gets to see what's going on with the house.
How'd you
Right.
find that property?
Um
If it's a secret, don't worry about it. You don't have to tell us, but like really,
oh, excuse me. No, so throughout the years, we've had a lot of events, and because of other HBCU related platforms that I either have or am a part of, right, like that have basically millions of engagements and views a month and all these things, right? They're very socially active platforms. So many people either DM us or email me and say, hey, I found this. Uh, hey, I found this near Tennessee State. Are you guys in Tennessee State yet? Right. So oftentimes people reach out to me with the property because those people want to get involved. Um, they might see something that they know that they could be into, but they also maybe already want some existing structure behind it. Right. Um, and it's just a journey, man. I'm just going through it and sharing it in real time.
right.
Right.
No, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Actually I'm gonna jump on your coattails and we're gonna go take this thing around the nation and talk
I'm
about
with it, man. Let's do it.
I had Shelly on a Bell a couple weeks ago, and I talked to her about my love of T-shirts, and so that stemmed from basically taking credit cards in college. Like basically, I walk into the student union building, and they're like, "Hey, here's a T-shirt, but
Oh
you got
wow.
a credit card, and we'll give you the T-shirt after you get the credit card, right?" And so
Right.
that's a big hyperbole, but what I'm saying is basically if I would have known then how to manage that situation a lot better, I would have been a little bit better off once I got out of college. However, I talk about relationships all the time. That because I had some relationships, they kind of saved my life because they said, "Hey, look, we're gonna rein you back in, and this is what you need to do, right, to put yourself in a position to have a sustainable life." But there's a lot of kids or young adults, as we mentioned, that come out. They don't have those resources or don't have those mentors or opportunities to fix things. And so I think like if we would have had folks in our, which is getting better now, I'm seeing a lot of people really pouring into the youth right now. But I think if we started at an earlier age, people would be in a lot better position moving forward and could, for to some extent, for all intents and purposes, be able to control their destinies a little bit more too as well.
Right. I mean, to even add to that, they didn't know. Generationally, it's not their fault, right? The generation before them was just
Just
happy
survive.
to get a job and survive and have a 401k, right?
Yeah.
There was no utilize the monetary position you're in and figure out how to extend it all while navigating through this system that you are forced to be part of.
That would have
Like
been
that wasn't even a thought.
Yeah, that was a far fetched. That was a big risk, and it was often seen as being irresponsible too as well to do something like that. Yeah. How can we because we're gonna end with a purpose question, but how can we find you? I'm gonna put that in the chat here. Like, what's the best way to connect with you in regards to the HBCU, the real estate piece?
So you can go to my website, which is myname.com. Then there's actually a hbcrealty.com website. Both of those have email links and newsletter links on them.
Got it. So torrencereed.com and hbcurealty.com.
Yep.
Hang on, HBCU. Have some help doing this, but as you know, it's Christmas Eve, so
Right. It's cool. You a techie. You got it.
Yeah, I thank you for coming on today. This has been cool.
I appreciate it, man. Hey, you know me, man. I'll talk about this all day long.
So here we go. One person, dead or alive. One person, dead or alive. One question. Who would it be, and what would you ask? You can tell us why. You can tell us why that you chose that person, but tell us one person, dead or alive. One question.
I would honestly, I would really want to ask Jay-Z a question, right? I would really want to ask him how has he consistently and exponentially navigated through corporate, racist, white enterprise America and kept himself, right? I mean, I know that comes with notoriety and legacy and time and consistency, right? But and I know for some that may be uncomfortable, right? But that's what it is, right? Like he doesn't bow to them. Everyone else does, right? Like whatever he puts out or promotes, they let him do it, right? And I don't. It's not many people in the industries that he's in that just get the green lights on whatever, right? So from several angles, like from a policy standpoint, from a political standpoint, from a monetary standpoint, like there's always angles to the actions that most people like, oh yeah, they only let Jay-Z do that, right? Like who else could have argued with changing the Super Bowl act? It's probably not too many people, right? So I always wonder that, like, because you do know that once you get to a certain level of income and wealth and notoriety, like the weight that's bearing down on you to conform, it gets heavier.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. As you go up the ladder, you got that's just what it is.
So you want to ask him about that? Like, how did he deal with that?
How do you navigate through that as you get bigger and you have a wider net and you're dealing with more money, you have more of an influence over the planet. How do you kind of get to do things, but they don't let anybody else do things?
Right. No, that's a great question. I ask this question every week. So, those of you that are listening, if you're gonna be on our show, be prepared to answer that question. And because like this actually, Torrence, this part is my favorite piece of the entire conversation is, typically when I speak, I'll open up with that sort of an icebreaker. But I look forward to, I heard everything you said, I promise you. But
I know you did.
If we can fast forward it 30 minutes for me to ask you that question, that's my favorite part, because it really talks about people's mindset too as well. But it also helps others to understand things that you've been thinking, because like I've been asking this question and so far no one said Jay-Z yet. But I often wonder when I'm listening to his music, right? I think about like everybody that listens to Jay-Z's music and follows Jay-Z. He's saying some really controversial stuff in his music, right? And it's great and it's a lesson. But however, he's able to remain authentic, completely authentic as far as what we can tell, right? Weave through any room, any and create a tremendous amount of impact throughout the world. And so, that's Jay-Z is definitely a good one. I would probably ask him that same thing too. That's like authenticity is something that I really look into, and I ask people like, how are you able to say these things? How are you able to
right? Like, what did they say back to you?
Yeah.
I'm with you, because you gotta. It's as you begin to have more people to please, pieces of you get chipped away.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So everybody, follow Torrence Reed. He is a rising star. I wouldn't even call him rising.
Appreciate you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I believe in you, man, and I know you're gonna do great things. But and we have something that we're working on that's gonna be.
I can't wait.
Right, it's exciting, right?
I can't wait.
And so we launched that in the next few weeks here. Right, like next week.
Like 10 days. not 2 weeks. I'm counting down.
Okay. All right. We're going to launch that, and it's going to be really amazing. And I can't wait to get everybody involved and on board with it. And, let's just keep in touch. And if anybody wants to talk real estate, just reach out to us. And again, I know, so whether you celebrate Christmas or not, like Merry Christmas to those that do, Happy Holidays, and, on the other side, as well. And then just everyone, just try to remain as safe and as healthy as you possibly can. And like I say every week, if there's anything that we can do to help you, in any way, resources, like I mentioned before, there are resources that you didn't even know that existed and that you might want to learn more about. That's why we have this mission, and that's why it's called Lending with Purpose. So again, I'm not abandoning mortgages. I still do mortgages. That's the bread and butter, and we can talk mortgages all day long, but it would be such a shame to have built all these relationships over the years and not be able to share that network with you. And so that's really part of the why. So Torrence, I ask you to hang on for one quick second after we end the live, and yeah, everybody have a great one, and we'll see you next week.